Hello?
Hello.
Oh, hey, okay. I'm not alone.
No.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Hey, I assume we'll get Sean soon. Hello. Hey, Chris. I see we also have Victor and Johannes is on his way in.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, Sean.
Hello?
Hi.
Hey, hello.
Let's wait 2 more minutes for people to join.
I see that Javier is here. Maybe we should start by congratulating Javier.
Oh, yes.
Thank you, guys. If we were in a bar, this round would be on me.
It's exciting.
Yeah, and hopefully maybe now we finally can join. Well, Josh, when we were ready to join the foundation, now we're gonna change the place. What is it? What is this about?
Yeah, you can't tell us that you can't afford the membership.
Right, but are we dropping from the Linux Foundation now?
I think
Is
we're
what
gonna
is
go.
happening?
I think we're gonna
Yeah,
go.
let's just get into it. So thanks for attending the UCF TAC meeting in December. This meeting we will discuss our options, and the board has discussed for many months. We are going to move on with a merge with the OpenJS Foundation, and some of the background here is that I think Abe can speak a little more, but generally we will feel like the financial structure was how the membership structures is not sustainable for UCF to be a standalone project for another year. And one of the options we do have is we have an offer from the OpenJS Foundation to be moving our project and moving our TAC under the OpenJS Foundation. So OpenJS is a standalone organization managed by Linux Foundation, and it has a governing board and also have a cross-project council similar to our TAC. And they have 4 staff members, and it's a foundation that's hosted many prominent JavaScript infrastructure projects such as Node.js, Electron, Webpack, and AMP and NVM. So have you guys heard of OpenJS? Any questions?
What are some example projects that are under it? Sorry,
I
okay,
think-
some slides. Sorry, I didn't see.
Yeah, Node.js is the biggest one. I can also go to there. So they host mainly JavaScript infrastructure projects. So the biggest one, Node.js Webpack, and Electron, Dojo, jQuery, and there are others here that many of them we currently use.
So it kind of like makes sense, right?
Yeah, so I think it makes sense because it's like a much bigger foundation, and it's financially sustainable by itself, and it has a governing board and also technical board as well. And it's kind of because a lot of our project today is also JavaScript based, and even though OpenJS is like a very broad idea, it's not specifically visualization focused, but we could create our own working group under OpenJS and moving our TAC into there. So there's some points on how a merge technically is gonna happen. So UCF we will create its own collaborative space under OpenJS, and existing TAC which can just port over to govern the collaboration space. The UCF members can become OpenJS members, and OpenJS does not require OF membership. So UCF members only need to pay for OpenJS membership fee. And Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, last time when we have a chat, UCF member will have our first year membership fee waived, right?
That's correct. That's for the specifically for the members of the foundation. Yeah.
Right. Anything I missed in here, or do you guys have any questions?
So generally the membership costs should be lower for each member, right? And so one, you don't. So we had the problem with the Urban Computing Foundation that we needed to pay twice, right? For if you were not already a member of Linux Foundation, you first had to become a member of Linux Foundation, and then you also had to. So you had to pay for that, and then you had to pay for the Urban Computing Foundation, you know, and then obviously out of the Urban Computing Foundation, a lot of that budget was then also, you know, paying for overhead for Linux Foundation. So that was the kind of struggle. And here we only have to pay for the OpenJS Foundation, and I think the price tiers are a little bit lower, so the total cost will be less for each member. Is that right, Brian?
In general, I believe that's correct when you take into account the Linux Foundation membership as well. I think maybe one of the other things to look at here as well, just kind of setting aside the actual cost of the membership tiers, one of the advantages of combining with a larger organization is that you get some economies of scale on the management side of things. And that, you know, just to provide some transparency to the discussions that were happening on the governing board, there was some concern that UCF hadn't quite met the, you know, kind of the minimum bar for scale to be able to, you know, both manage itself, which is where, you know, a good deal of the funding kind of needs to go, because there's obviously human costs associated with getting things up and running and keeping things running, but then also being able to, you know, make additional investments in the ecosystem that really help the projects grow. And specifically, I'm thinking about things like having marketing resources, being able to, you know, participate as a primary project in events, you know, significant sized events. You know, there are advantages to being in certain, you know, being associated with certain projects and being in certain rooms that help cross-pollinate the adoption of the different projects as well as the contributors. So there are quite a few reasons that, you know, this is potentially on the table here. I really do think, though, if the goal is to have impact, to really be able to get these economies of scale for what it takes to actually run one of these things behind the scenes, this is a pretty good option. And in terms of just, you know, kind of disclosing where I come from here, the governing board knows this, but I've been working on OpenJS Foundation for a number of years here at the Linux Foundation. I came in right around the time of the JSF and Node Foundation merger and helped operationally on the back end. So I've got, you know, a pretty good perspective here on, you know, the kind of the nuts and bolts of what makes these foundations run. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Certainly, you know, we want to be as open and transparent through this as possible.
So
one question
yeah, so this
ahead.
is Javier. I wanted to ask, what do you guys think is going to happen with the existing members? And have would you talk to the board? I mean, that in a way is what one of the things that, you know, I was interested about the Urban Computing Foundation is the fact that it was supported by key, say, like stakeholders of the industry on this thing. So will they turn over? And is there already other kind of like contributors to the OpenJS Foundation too?
Yes, so similar to Urban Computing Foundation, OpenJS Foundation is a member-supported organization. There are a couple of things, though, that come with the scale of OpenJS Foundation. It is, you know, looking at it effectively, where does the money come from to pay for all the structures that keep things running? It is a bit more diversified. They have, you know, for example, the certification program around Node.js, which is some diversification from just membership dues. There's a conference that gets run every year that is also a source of financial support. As for the existing members, just kind of, you know, recognizing the fact that the existing members have helped Urban Computing Foundation get to where it is, but also have been sustaining it through this time. You know, the plan is to bring them on with credit for dues paid, essentially, for the next year. And then at that point, then they can make a decision whether they continue their membership or discontinue their membership. And that's more of a governing board topic, but our hope is obviously that, that the folks who are involved and who are helping support these projects are able to stay involved and continue to support these projects.
I mean, from a practical perspective, right? I mean, it was very exciting to have a board consisting of a number of key players, but in reality, Uber was a big member. They very rarely participated in the board, and the topics that we've been talking about for the last 3, 4, 5 months is really just related to how are we going to continue this foundation. So it has just been big meta discussions about how we're going to do funding, what kind of options we have to kind of sustain this. And so this has been a very in a way unproductive time where we haven't really talked about like bringing in new technologies or new initiatives or industry partnerships and so on, the things that would be really exciting. And so it feels a bit like we don't really have critical mass. We're mainly spinning our wheels. And, we want to focus on having a really good home that secures the open governance. And we'll still be able to meet, we'll still be able to, run our TAC and this will be a great space where we can collaborate. We won't be kind of board members because the board memberships here are much more expensive, but I think it'll be a very neutral space for us to collaborate. And I wouldn't necessarily count on Uber staying here, but Foursquare certainly will. Unfolded will be here. Google, big companies like Google, I think are already platinum members, so it would be easier to re-engage with them. And because the fees are now lower, bar is lower, it should be easier to invite. I was working very hard to invite a number of smaller companies to the Urban Computing Foundation, but when you added up the 2 fees, it just became so expensive. I mean, you've been in that situation yourself, Javier, that it's just a little bit too expensive to join, right? And I'm hoping that will be easier now.
So what you're saying essentially is going to be cheaper. There's already quite a bit of a structure in there, and nothing's going to change much. So right, so sounds like, yeah. And it's still because one of the things that we I think was opinion around the Urban Computing Foundation, as I say, was the branding on itself. But it sounds like we can. Well, first of all, we're not benefiting that much. So as long as, and this will also, I assume, will continue kind of supporting the legal part around defending. I mean, all these other parts of front suites. So I think it sounds like a no-brainer, yes.
Just to jump in on some of these things, that really is the goal here, right? Is making sure that we have a sustainable home for these projects. Making sure that there's enough funding to ensure that that all the back end structures that we take care of on our end are still there to help you really focus on your projects and make sure those projects themselves are technically sustainable. One of the advantages of being in a larger foundation really is, that there's less of a question of, do we have enough members to keep the lights on next year? And that is one of the major advantages here. And one of the things we discussed in the governing board meeting was that there are governance structures within OpenJS Foundation that effectively allow the TAC to port over, right? So that the goal here is minimum disruption to the projects. The goal here is to make sure that that these concerns about whether the lights stay on are no longer concerns. And I think we've got a pretty good option for that. I won't go into the specific details. We went into them pretty deeply in the last governing board meeting, but it does seem like there are quite a few good things that can come out of this, and it seems like a fairly straightforward path forward.
I'd like to add a bit of perspective. You were saying, it seems like a no-brainer, and I think it really is a no-brainer to everybody, actually, except for maybe Joby, like in the sense that we literally just joined the board. But at the same time, I'm completely on board, and Joby is completely on board with this move, because when we joined, we just basically broke even by us joining on keeping the lights on for another year. Without that, we would have been in the red. And it's really difficult to see additional groups coming on to bring us to any kind of scale compared to what OpenJS Foundation can offer. And so, you know, it was a bit of a surprise, but also turned into an interesting opportunity to join as a member, and then have the kind of first topic that come up be like, oh, actually, we're not really sure how we're going to grow this foundation further. You know, it's not just, we have a bunch of options on the table. And if we don't join OpenJS, we still have a bunch of options on the table because we are now at least broken even for another year. But, you know, like my main priority is to keep the governance and code open and alive and have a vibrant TAC and have a vibrant community of contributors. Like I really saw that all of the impressive work that's being done in this foundation is being done in the code and technical side of things, not really in kind of the back end governing side of things. For a while, we haven't really been leading many initiatives on that front. And so it seems like OpenJS is a place where we can go and really focus on what we're good at, focus on what we enjoy doing, and what we've attracted a lot of attention and contributors for, you know, which is actually like the engineering work and the technology that we develop. And basically deprioritize the policy side and you know, things that the really policy and marketing side of things that the board was originally developed to kind of promote. I mean, the history of the board is something I've been learning about when I joined, and it was originally like Google, Facebook, Uber, and they all had, you know, these plans on initiatives that they were going to do, and many of them just didn't really pan out on the policy side of things. But what has persisted through this whole thing has been, you know, DeckGL, KeplerGL, BizGL, all these projects that have been growing and you know, have a lot of users that and developers that really love our project. So I'm hoping that like my priority, you know, as a kind of as a board member is to keep the governance and code open, you know, maintain participation and carve out a great space for us all to work in, and then keep increasing that engineering participation with like organic growth and having a space for us to all kind of join together and meet every month. And all the time meet virtually.
Very well said.
Justly spoken.
No, I think we all agree, and in a way, so it was also like we all believe. I mean, the people that are now on this team, on this project, is because we believe on the DeckGL ecosystem and, you know, and the potential that it has. And I agree. We'd rather, you know, like talk about these things than more like, you know, like yeah. So I think there's a lot of potential just if we just keep focusing on improving the technology. I'm a firm believer that we are in a very strong position to provide the most powerful open source visualization framework that exists for geospatial data, depending on how you. So I think you know, we are in that position. If we keep investing and attracting, you know, like contributors and so on, I think it will be the best. So if this foundation give us the platform to focus on that, I think this is what we, at the end of the day, that's what we all want.
Yeah, I mean, my view, and I think Sean also, as we looked at it, right? So this is you know, we met also some representatives, and it was a very good, it felt like a very warm welcome. It felt like we were getting a hug. And so you know, there's no question in my mind that this is a very, you know, good home. I think the question was, is it like the best home for, because one, we are not quite the JavaScript technology, right? We have also, you know, support for Python, and we have support for, there's even a partial C++ port of Deck, and going forward, we may, you know, expand into other things, but we still have a very strong core. It's really, you know, focused on the browser, and so it's not unreasonable. So that was one kind of thing that it could be a little bit of a label to put ourselves in a JavaScript foundation, but not enough to really be a yellow flag. And the other thing is that we actually did look at this. So we feel like if there was a foundation with more focused on big data, or visualization, and then when we looked over at the Apache Foundation, all of the cool big data projects are there. So Apache Arrow and all the different big databases and so on. So we actually even met with the Apache Foundation, but it's a very different setup, and it would be possible, but it would be quite a lot of effort. And some of the projects that we have in Urban Computing Foundation, like the MapSen, would not be willing to go through the necessary work. And so it just seems that there could be some long-term benefits, but it doesn't seem worthwhile to. So we have, so the board has looked into, but I'm trying to say, board has turned stones and looked into different options. We haven't just jumped at OpenJS because it's there.
Yeah, I think this might be a good place to mention too that OpenJS is really centered around JavaScript. However, in practice, it has not been. I'm trying to think of a good way to say this. It's not terribly opinionated about the specific projects that it accepts, mainly looking to make sure that the projects are a good fit, that they do have obviously some intersection with the JavaScript ecosystem. But it's not a foundation that says, for example, we only accept infrastructure projects, or we only accept browser-based projects, or whatever the case may be. There's been a good deal of understanding within the Cross-Project Council, which is the OpenJS Foundation's equivalent of the TAC. Good understanding in the Cross-Project Council that there are a lot of different projects that serve a lot of different needs and have a lot of different project communities. And there's been a lot of willingness as well to look at expanding in different directions. I think the main thing to take away from this as well, from what I'm saying there specifically, is that I think you could look at this as being a place that would be a welcoming home. Obviously, we need to go through their process, but we had some thoughts on that, on making sure that the projects would go through the same onboarding process as other projects as they come into the OpenJS Foundation. The other side of that, though, is being able to maintain the identity of open visualization and geospatial visualization and mapping and things like that. And there are structures within the technical governance of the OpenJS Foundation that allow for effectively self-organized groups. And at least the initial thought is the TAC could become one of those self-organized groups. We call them collaboration spaces. But basically, the idea is that there's with a minimal amount of governance fuss, could effectively carve out the same identity as is currently occupied by the UCF TAC within the OpenJS Foundation.
And so, I mean, sometimes what helps me is to just understand, like, what does the output look like once this is all done? And to me, my current understanding is we've got the board that would disappear, that would no longer exist. So Joby, Foursquare, Uber, and here the board members and those company affiliations would become OpenJS members, but they wouldn't be participating in the board unless they, did what OpenJS requires to be a participant in their board. And there's no expectation that we do that, which is mostly a financial thing. There are some board roles that get elected in. We're not expected to be like running, so that kind of goes away. The TAC we have, which is the meeting we're at right now, and all of the GitHub organization-based kind of collaboration and any kind of architectural stuff, that stays intact. Like, that doesn't change. It will maybe get a different name and it'll be a collaborative space under OpenJS, but there will be no change because it doesn't need to change, and that's where all the work is getting done. So we don't want to touch anything there. The other thing is that there's a couple of trademarks that we're trying to keep maintained. The MapSen has a trademark. We also have a variety of domains that get paid for every year. Those would get transferred over too. And so I think I'm not missing anything. I think that's it. One of the kind of really interesting things there is the MapZen project can get transferred over into OpenJS, you know, at the participation level that their representatives want to participate in. They don't meet monthly. They don't have a TAC like the rest of the projects do. That's very active, but there are still people that are, and there are very active forks of MapZen. And so it was kind of an interesting community to navigate. And I think that there's like always it's always an open door for those forks to want to come back in and participate. But at the moment, it seems like from the representatives we've spoke to, the MapZen original, like GitHub organization, which isn't TileZen and it isn't, you know, what's on first, and it isn't forgetting some of the other ones. I mean, there's like Transitland and all the different sub-projects of MapZen that have forked off. Those would not be moving along with us because they're not actually part of the foundation. And so it's kind of unrelated to VisGL. It's not really what we discuss every month, but you know, the whole point is to not drop anything when we make a move, if we make a choice. And so it's important to consider all of the projects that are inside of the foundation and figure out what their participants really want, and make sure that we do something that satisfies their needs.
Yeah, that's really well said. So just at least kind of responding to some of the things you said here, in terms of the logistics, it's actually even simpler than transferring everything over. Everything basically stays where it is. OpenJS Foundation effectively financially adopts these different obligations, whether it's maintaining the MapZen mark, which is the only registered trademark currently, maintaining the common law marks, which are effectively all the other ones, maintaining the domain registrations and everything else. So that, from a logistical perspective, it's extremely straightforward. To your second point about MapZen, and a good portion of the work is being done in closely related projects, but projects which aren't underneath the the banner or the umbrella of the UCF. In many ways, it's an opportunity for them, but also should be reassuring. So there's an opportunity there of, if they have an interest in effectively, reorganizing or organizing underneath the OpenJS Foundation, there is a project lifecycle process, which is very well tended by the Cross Project Council, to become an official OpenJS Foundation project, which then provides access to the various resources and support of the foundation. Obviously, that's optional, but it is, that door is absolutely open. On the other hand, if the goal is to work effectively downstream from the original MapZen code, and MapZen itself proper is something which is not going to be maintained actively going forward, then it is a place, it's a home. OpenJS Foundation has this idea of emeritus or archived projects where there's not really activity going on. The repos may be archived, but the trademarks are still being maintained, domains are still being maintained. There's a backup owner on the GitHub board, so that effectively these things can't be picked up and taken somewhere else by somebody who may not have the greatest of intentions. So there are many different ways to look at this. I think kind of the key thing is this doesn't mean the end of these projects. Even if it does mean that they go into archive state, it doesn't mean the end, and they are still being tended.
And in a more practical thing, one of the things that we kind of like, in a way, I've been missing, particularly with the Urban Computing Foundation and the management of the Linux Foundation, was, for example, recently there was this, there's the FOSS4G conference, right? The Free and Open Source Software for Geospatial Conference. It's a very, very large conference. And there was no abstract on DecGL, for example. And that was, I found it kind of like that was a real pity, right? Because we were kind of like missing to kind of like, and that's the kind of thing we say like, wow, gosh, I wish there was someone that would say, hey guys, send abstracts here. Now there's these opportunities, for promotion. Because if not, it's all too organic. what type of resources could this foundation kind of give us to kind of overcome some of this, because we have contributors but no one actually looking at growing the community from a marketing and this type of perspective.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think there are two aspects. Oh, sorry. I think there are two aspects of this to consider. One is that OpenJS Foundation does have funded marketing staff, and to be kind of clear on the marketing folks' roles here, it's effectively working to help promote obviously the foundation itself, but also the projects as they go through a release or something like that, making sure that these things get promoted, providing a place to do write-ups on high traffic websites, for example. If there's a recent release and you want to tell the world about it, somebody who can help you with that process. The other side of that is kind of the more project specific question that you were asking, who can give us a poke that there's that abstracts are being submitted right now for a conference that you might be interested in. Typically, we do rely on the projects to be the experts in that, as opposed to the foundation. So that sort of speaker placement type work is something that we're not currently doing for projects. With that said, the hope is that we can provide support on the other things, which frees up the bandwidth to be able to do that directly within the project. So I hope that kind of puts some context on the rough boundaries of marketing work. I will also say that one other kind of key thing to keep in mind here too is that we do run a fairly good sized conference.
I'm on the car, so it was.
I'm sorry, I think I was talking over you. It all caught up.
No worries. Now? No. Gosh. Can you guys? Right. Nothing.
Yes.
You don't hear me.
It's a little crunchy for me. Oh, I think we just lost him. Give him a moment to rejoin, I guess.
I think one thing I wanted to bring up was I was hoping to, because the end state of all this would be basically the TAC survives. And the TAC is what is primarily the function of everything that gets done if we merge over, because the board doesn't exist anymore. There's no other body besides the TAC. What I was hoping to get kind of the perspective of all the current TAC members. Not everybody is here today, so I don't feel like at the conclusion of this meeting that we'll really have heard all the voices. At least I haven't yet. But it's really important to me that all of the people that are actively contributing to the TAC and participate in the architectural choices really want this too, can come to the same position that I've come to, where they want this too. And if they don't, I really want to understand that too, so that it can play a role in helping us figure out what's right, because the goal is at the end of this to accelerate, not decelerate. So we currently feel like we're stagnant or decelerating, and so we're hoping that we can make a change that'll help accelerate. So I don't know if there's another opportunity for us to do that before we have to vote on the motion, but I would like to kind of hear from Xiaoji and some of the other big contributors to our code, to the Foundation's code projects.
I think the plan was to share the information that we're planning to make this change, right? And give some time to get feedback. We are probably overdue for a bigger open governance planning meeting if we schedule that soon, we could also bring it up there.
Yeah, and Given and I individually, we already met with Randy from MapZen and floated this idea with him. And to him, it's like, since they don't have resources to actively maintaining MapZen and keep working with the foundation, like actively working with foundation. For him, it's as long as the projects move to a foundation under LF, that keep them so they have the minimum support, keeping the project open source. They're fine with whichever direction we go. So, and that's for that. And then I think OpenJS has a Emirates tier for project that's kind of in a back burner kind of status. So MapZen more likely will be moved into the Emirates projects group.
Yeah, and I've had a brief sync with Xiaoji, and I mean, she doesn't raise any flags. I think she has been more frustrated than anyone with Uber's passivity in the Urban Computing Foundation, and I think making a fresh start makes sense to her.
And maybe just to kind of bring things back to the kind of full circle to the beginning of the conversation. One of the advantages of effectively hosting the UCF projects under the larger umbrella of a larger foundation is that there's a lot less exposure to the activity or inactivity of any given member, any given financially supporting member. It does provide quite a bit of diversification, provides the economies of scale, and provides stability as well. To the point about not making a decision today, I fully agree. This is something which, it's not a small decision, and it is the sort of thing that it should be well considered, and should be gathering feedback. The goal is not to ram this through. The goal is obviously to not let it go forever, but at the same time, if there are concerns, if there are questions, Ib, Sean, Chris, Johannes, we've been discussing this quite a bit recently, and I think any of us would probably be able to answer or at least take the feedback if you have feedback.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, right? I mean, we've worked through this. So this is this requires a majority vote in the board. We currently have 5 voting members, so it requires 4 out of 5 members, and we're still checking Uber's opinion, but we have 4 members who are in favor. So we are able to make a vote in the board today and make this change. So this can happen. What we want to do now is basically make sure that we communicate and also listen. The decision could be changed if some very strong flag is coming up, but this is basically the intention and what we expect to happen.
Yeah, thanks for summarize, Ib. I think that brings it to the point.
And thank you for all the work.
Yes.
No problem. Yeah, I think any of us are here to listen, not just today, but over the next weeks, to understand perspectives that might take some time to be mulled over. We'll be posting issues publicly on all of our projects so that people understand our intention, and they can leave comment and discuss further. Because yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we just really don't want to be alienating groups and doing things that are really against contributors' wishes. We don't think that this is that, but we want to be creating that space where that can be voiced and discussed, and questions can be raised, and we can just talk through it.
Yeah, I mean, what is pretty clear by the fact that we can do this is that these decisions are not irreversible, right? If there in the future should emerge an incredible big data visualization foundation, we could have another look at this, but it's obviously not a change we want to do very frequently given the overheads involved. And so we want to find something that's a good home for at least a few years, and hopefully in the long term, but it's not something that I think we have to agonize too much over, because
it's not forever. It seems to be a good choice for the next step to accelerate. I think that's what the board's been discussing since I've joined, is how do we accelerate what we do and encourage more organic growth and improve our brand and help more people understand all the effort that goes into the projects we do and the value that they can bring them if they pick our projects up and use them and contribute to them.
So can we ask the OpenJS Foundation as a first kind of start that they design a logo for us? Could that be the first request? Do you guys have resources for that?
Yes.
I don't know if we want to outsource that part, but
we really need a logo. I mean, it's killing me on the architectures.
Yeah, let's have that as our first, as a topic for our first.
I'm not joking. It might not be a bad idea that we do some sort of branding revamp, in the sense of hey, DeckDL, like the new version of DeckDL, here's the logo, the whole ecosystem in a way. We put some logo into it, and we say, and now we're part of the foundation. Just so that we focus this, so that we don't focus on the fact that we're changing foundation, because it's, at the end of the day, it's useless for the users. They don't care about that. But I mean, unless they're looking at the governance and so on. But what they care is hey, here's people who are highly motivated. This project has a lot of life, and we are presenting here our logo. People get excited about these things.
Yeah, and I mean, if we can announce it together with the message that this is increased investment, and now Kato is joining in a big way, and this and that, right? We can build a story how this is not just something we had to do because UCF was dying, but we're doing this because this is a big deal, right? It's
and maybe. Maybe we can also use the new logo, and maybe we can also add, the Carto joining and so on. So we should, put this in a way that is positive. Hey, more energy into the project.
I love it.
Yeah, it definitely is a positive change in my view. I was really excited to have Joby join the Urban Computing Foundation because of these projects that we get to work on. And I'm really excited about the opportunity of merging into OpenJS because of how awesome I think that the foundation has done putting this group together over there and being so welcoming to all of our projects, and really recognizing all the hard work that we all do.
Cool. So guys, I have to go now, but I mean, I just want to say fully supportive of this, and thank you for all the work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, I think that's concludes it. Yeah, so we will start into the process and let you guys know what are the next steps. And likely there won't be much for the project has to do. It's mainly on the tech to move over the existing documentations and creating a subgroup with OS. But Brian, so we will still have our TAC meeting January, or
I think that
or we can just right.
I mean,
So that's
whether it's a TAC meeting or whether it's a TAC meeting under the Urban Computing Foundation or under OpenJS Foundation, or or whatever, it hopefully should not affect you.
great. Sounds good. Thank you everyone for the inputs. we'll meet again. Happy New Year and have a nice holiday.
Yeah, enjoy your holidays and have a good start into 2022.
All right.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
Bye.
See you next
Bye.
Happy New Year. Bye bye.